tonight, right now, I've got with me a great friend and a person that I've watched and followed, I can't believe it now, for more than 2 decades, about 2.5 decades. I've watched this young lady grow and develop and become just one of the greatest minds that are out there in the field of leadership. Kathleen Patterson, PhD. Dr. Patterson serves as a professor and the director of the Doctor of Strategic Leadership program, the DSL program they call it, at Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia. She's been there in that department since 1999. Now, she doesn't look anywhere near like she's that old, but I'll tell you, she was back there during that time when I was there. This is my alma mater, and so I actually had a chance to teach in that program for a while. It's a great program. She's the director. Dr. Patterson is noted as an expert on servant leadership. And listen at this. She has coordinated 3 global roundtables in the Netherlands, Australia, and Iceland on the subject of servant leadership. And if you followed me, have been around the 10 essential skills, you know that servant leadership is number 3 in my 10 essential skills. So I love this stuff and can't wait to hear what Dr. Patterson has to say. Additionally, she's involved in numerous consulting projects nationally and abroad. She sits on the board of the Larry C. Spears Center, CareNet, and Millennials for Marriage. Wow. Now, there's so much more to say about her, but I'm just going to stop there. I'll never have an opportunity to let her talk tonight. So, Dr. Patterson, it is so good to have you with us tonight and to be able to talk about one of my favorite subjects, servant leadership. I have asked you to deal with this subject and to really address these 3 questions. I'm going to state them for our audience, and then I'm just going to let you just jump out there, greet them, and go. And as I've told you before, I might just interrupt you from time to time when you say something that really digs in. But if you would answer this, what is this thing we call servant leadership? Number 2, what is the definer of servant leadership? And then number 3, what are the misconceptions that are out there about servant leadership?
Thank you, Dr. Garman. It's a pleasure to be with you. And you're right, I can't believe we've known each other for over 2 decades. So obviously, I appreciate the work that you're doing to uplift and train leaders all over the world, especially Christian leaders, because when we claim the name of Christ, it's so important that we reflect Christ in our leadership and in the things that we do. And that is one of the reasons that when I began my scholarly journey, I heard about this terminology, servant leadership. And I was immediately intrigued, what is that? And servant leadership is about being focused on your followers. It is about they are your primary concern. Whether you lead in an organization, lead in a church, a business setting, a church setting, a nonprofit setting, whatever it is, leading in your home. It is about focusing on your followers, focusing on your people. And leaders can typically focus on 3 things. You can focus on yourself, and a lot of leaders do that. We all know those leaders. But if you're focused on yourself, that's a very transactional way to lead. And none of these are wrong. They're just different. The second focus that leaders can have is a focus on the organization and the organizational objectives. And of course, some of that is good and noble as well. We need to take care of our organizations. But the highest level of leading is servant leadership, where you are concerned about your people, you are focused on your followers. A lot of people ask me, what do I do? And I always lead with, I build better human beings. And that is about being focused on your followers, building them, helping them, working with them, not always even seeing who they are right now for the today, but seeing them for the tomorrow, for who they can become, and serving them with all that you are as a leader to create those better people in the world. Servant leadership has defining characteristics, and I'll just try to list some of those for you. Love, I consider that the primary definer. Humility, altruism, trust, vision, empowerment, and ultimately service. One of the questions that I love to ask leaders, especially people who are in ministry settings, is whose feet are you washing? And it's not always an easy question to answer, because sometimes as a leader, we think we're in charge, we're the top dog, we are, the one at the top of everything. But that's not even the example that Jesus set for us. He truly washed the feet of his own disciples. And I think that's something that we have to take into consideration, is whose feet are we washing? And how are we washing people's feet? And how are we serving, our followers, our people, our employees, whatever it may be? It is a high charge. The book of Philippians tells us to do nothing out of selfish ambition. And, sometimes, we can be very ambitious. Our culture, our world tells us to be ambitious, to be the top dog, to go for the prize. And that's not even really what the Bible teaches us. And so, sometimes I think as servant leaders, we've really got to define who we are, who we're leading, and even why we are in a leadership position. We have the secular worldly standards here and the biblical standards here, and they don't always match. And sometimes we've got to separate some of those out. One of the main ways that it doesn't match is significance. The world tells you to find your significance, to find your place, your calling in this world. And for a place of servanthood, we've really got to find our significance in Christ, our significance in the lowly things of this world. And with all humility, that's not always easy, but it is about serving people, a focus on followers, a focus on others, and realizing it's not all about us.
Man, that is absolutely phenomenal. If you were to focus on the definer, what really kind of separates it out? Is there one of those that kind of stands out or comes to mind?
Absolutely, Dr. Garment. I think there are two definers, and the most important, really everything, in my opinion, for a servant leader or a leader who reflects Christ is love. It is always going to be about love. And I do not think it's by coincidence that Jesus Christ in his teachings deduced the entire Old Testament law into two things: love God, love others. And I realize it sounds so good, right? It is so hard for us as leaders to actually love our followers. And let's face it, some people are not all that lovable. But, Jesus didn't give us a backdoor approach. We don't get a free pass on people. It's love God, love others. We've got to love other people. I find it interesting, too, if we look at 1 Corinthians 13, the chapter on love. I think this is so fascinating, where it says, you can do all these great things, but if you don't have love, you're a gong or a clanging cymbal.
Yeah. And
none of us want to be just a clanging cymbal. My youngest son, when he was in college, was on the drum line. And so I carried around some cymbals sometimes, and they're quite obnoxious. So without love, we're pretty obnoxious to other people around us. And, the next verse goes on to say, we can speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but it says, if I don't have love, I am nothing. And quite frankly, if we don't have love in our leadership, we're nothing. And followers need to be loved. There is a human element to all of us that says, I want to be loved. I want to be respected. I want to be known. I want to be seen. And leaders who can lead with love. And, currently, Dr. Garment, as we're taping this, we're in a global pandemic. And, our world is so stressed and so pressurized right now with everything that's going on. And so many of us are sheltering in and, really being cautious. And so many of our employees and followers and are working from home, and they should be, obviously. I'm from home. It looks like I'm on the Regent University campus, but I'm at home. And, it's just a time where things are stressful and things are unknown and confusing. And we have got to love our people. Whether if you're a pastor and you're doing, sermons online and you're doing these virtual experiences for people, find a way to be able to show your love to others. It's not easy. The leader that I work for, every few days calls me and says, "Hey, Kathleen, what are you doing? What are you eating? How are things going?" And, she knows I love her dog, so she'll send me pictures of her dog. But it's those little things that are seemingly insignificant that have become huge to me. And for leaders, it's not always these big and grand and glorious things that we're doing, but it's the small things, the phone calls, the hugs.
You say love, and then you said there were two that just stand.
Yes.
What would be the second?
I love the second one. And it's one that we as Christians think that we got it down, but we don't, and it's humility. And there is a tendency for us to, we're in leadership positions, we've got title and accolades and all these things. We can begin to believe our own press. But honestly, it's humility. We have got to keep the stance that Jesus put us in these roles as leaders, not for our benefit, not for our glory, not for us, but to serve other people. And it's not even about their glory either. Everything we do should glorify Christ. One interesting thing I heard Corrie ten Boom say one time, someone asked her, "Do you ever get the tendency to not be humble in everything that you're doing? You've got this worldwide ministry." And I love the example she used from the Bible. She said the donkey that carried Jesus in, and what we call Palm Sunday, and, Hosanna, Hosanna. She said that donkey never thought that all of that was for him. It is about Jesus Christ. And, whether you work in a secular setting or a Christian setting or whatever it is, we should be so good at loving people and not promoting our own selves that people see Jesus Christ in the things that we do and how we lead other people.
Let me chase a little rabbit there with you, because you got me interested on something. And I know that being over the Doctor of Strategic Leadership program and doing the roundtables and the global gigs that you have an opportunity to participate in and lead, you get to see both the ministry world and the marketplace world. And a lot of our students at Regent in the PhD program, DSL program, are in the marketplace, but they're Christian and nonprofit leaders wanting to be Christian leaders to change the world, of course. But we hear a lot about servant leadership in the marketplace. And sometimes it seems I hear more about it in the marketplace than I do in the ministry. Do you hear that as well? And can you address that issue?
I do hear that. I hear it on both sides, and maybe it's because I live in both worlds. The secular business, Fortune 500, that kind of world, global, this and that. And, I'm so invested in the church world and that community. I do live in both. But there is a tendency for a lot of Christians to think, I am Christian, therefore I am servant. Yeah. And I wish that was true. I wish it was true. And I have to say, from my experience, that some Christian leaders that I've known have been dismal.
Yeah. And
some Christian leaders that I have known have been amazing men and women. Right. And the same is true in the secular world. I've seen amazing secular leaders and dismal secular leaders. So we really have to kind of shift all this out and decide who we are, as people. What is our motivation for leading? Why are we in this game? Why do we want a leadership position? Why do we want to influence groups of people, whether it's a small group or a large group? But there has to be something within us to be able to decide to take the stance of a servant and truly live and work in ways that are meaningful to other people. Sometimes I've had leaders do things for me that gave them nothing in return. Right. That did nothing for the organization. They did it just for me. And those times and those moments were so transformational in my life that they would serve me in that way when I didn't deserve it.
Right.
And it did nothing for them, but they were just serving with all that they were, in big ways and in small ways. Makes a huge difference in people's lives.
But then everything that we hear today, and I know from the literature and from experience, that that's the best way to tap into your engagement in the organization, is it not? When a leader authentically and genuinely cares about you and serves you, you're going to automatically put forth more, give more than what a paycheck can just give. Am I right?
Oh, you are so right. And as a matter of fact, you're even tapping into the entire reason that leadership came on the scene as a scholarly discipline. Because people got together and said, okay, for leaders, do we focus on the task or do we focus on the people? And you can look in the leadership literature, it's Ohio studies and Michigan studies, where people wanted to decide once and for all, do we need to focus on the task and get things done? Or do we need to focus on people? And honestly, great leaders are so aware that we're not one-dimensional. If you as a leader are only focusing on your followers for their hands, what they can do for you or what they can get done, you are missing the entire individual. We engage whole individuals in our leadership. We have hands to get things done. We have hearts. We have minds. We are whole individuals. And leaders have to engage people as whole individuals. There was something that came out in the summer of 2019 where business leaders came together, and they do these business roundtables every few decades where they bring together the most influential companies, and they answer this one question. And it's actually really interesting. What is the purpose of business? What is the purpose? And, initially, I think this was maybe like in the 1970s, I think it was 1973, where they said the purpose of business is to make money, which is funny, but they met one other time, and then in 2019. And for the first time in the history of the business roundtables, these influential CEOs and organizations said, wait a minute, there's something about people. We've got to pay attention to our people and taking care of them. And I was so excited because there's a chipping away and a little bit more of an understanding of we've got to care about our people for real. And not just in word. We can have it in a policy and procedures manual or have it in our mission statement or whatever. But followers don't care about that. They care about how you treat them, how you speak to them. Are you honest? Do you keep your word? Do you follow through on your commitments? Things like that matter to employees and to our followers. There's an old adage in leadership circles that says, and if you've ever experienced a horrible leader, you'll totally get this. People don't leave organizations. They leave leaders.
Wow, that's great.
It's true.
Yeah, that is true. All right, that segues us into this final question. What are the misconceptions out there about servant leadership?
Yes, I already tapped into one. The first misconception is that I am Christian, therefore I am servant. Not true. We as Christians have to make a complete dedication of our lives to serve others. It is, it's a choice. It is absolutely a choice. The second misconception is servant leadership is weak or permissive. Sometimes leaders, we've got to think we've got to be strong, we've got to be bold, and we've got to be in charge. And that's absolutely not true. Servant leadership is for the brave. It is so much easier for me to lead you out of fear. I'm going to tell you what to do. You're going to do it or else. And that is so effective that we tend to default to that because it works. It is so much harder to lead with love, to lead with service, and to totally take care of people, to do the right things for your followers. That's hard. And while I'm thinking about it, let's just mention that love is tough.
Yes.
Ron Scheich, who was the founder of Panera Bread, and he was, obviously their CEO for many, many years. He just stepped down, I think, last year. And he had an article that came out in Entrepreneur magazine, and he said the most fascinating thing. It really hit me on all cylinders because it's so true. He talked about his servant leadership journey and how servant leadership, that his job wasn't to be nice at all cost. It was to be helpful at all cost. And he talked about love is tough. And sometimes the best thing for me to do as a leader in my love journey towards you is to tell you no. Or you're fired. I know that's so hard to say. But sometimes we are so invested in our followers to serve them with the greatness that they actually do deserve. We've got to love them. We've got to be honest with them and cradle them up in so many ways to help them on their journey, as I said earlier, to become better human beings.
That is awesome. Kathleen, I could talk to you from now until the morning.
Yes, I think so.
Our time is about up, but you sure whet our appetite to dive deeper into this thing called servant leadership. I heard someone say not too long ago that they look forward to the day in Christian circles to where we don't even have to call it servant leadership, because all leadership should be servant leadership. And I think you've kind of really encapsulated that for us tonight. And I just want to thank you for all of your time and all of the passion. Man, you can hear that you care about this stuff, don't you?
I do. It changes people's lives.
Yeah. Well, tell us how people can get in touch with you if they might want to contact you. I know you're a great communicator and you're available for events and seminars and conferences and those kinds of things when you have the time. So tell the folks how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, email always works. Facebook works too. My email is kathpat@regent.edu. Very simple. Google Regent University. I'm on their site. So very easy to find me, or talk to Dr. Garman.
I'll be glad to point them in the right direction. And just give me a real soundbite about the program that you're directing, the Doctor of Strategic Leadership. Who is that for?
That is for men and women, and it's multidisciplinary. So you can come from any field to study leadership. And we have all different ages. I have students as young as in their 20s all the way up into their 80s, believe it or not. Men and women who want to study leadership from a practical perspective, with a biblical foundation, to understand how to lead people well. A lot of people come into our program, it's not even that they want to move further in their careers, they just want to be great at what they do to lead people well.
Well, thank you so much for that. I'm going to continue to push people your way. So proud of Regent University, who poured into me all of these years, and I'm so thankful for the product that I've become because of what Regent University has done for me, and for professors like you that give your life to the service of people.
Well, thank you, Dr. Garman, and I have to say, you are building better human beings. So we thank you.
Thank you so much. It's always great to have a partnership with my alma mater, and continue doing what you do. I'll continue to follow you and to be proud of you. I'm just so honored to call you a friend and a colleague, and to share this passion for all things leadership.